Hi everybody, welcome to Shelf Control. I'm Lisa,
I'm Norm.
and today is our review of Horizons of Spirit Island. So this was the one that randomly came up for us to review, and so at the end of this video we'll randomly pick our next review. But for now, let's talk about Horizons of Spirit Island.
Horizons of Spirit Island is a version of Spirit Island that was made, I think at first it was a Target exclusive. So you could buy it at Target. I don't know if it is still exclusive to Target, but that was its origins. It's kind of a cheapened down version where Spirit Island had modular board that you put together. This has a double-sided board where the island's built. It had wooden pieces for the Dahan, and these are cardboard. It had plastic pieces for the invaders and the blight, and these are cardboard. They also came with 5 new spirits that supposedly have been simplified a little bit, made a little bit easier. So people are saying this is kind of a good introductory to the Spirit Island game. We've got Spirit Island and the Jagged Earth expansion, but we've only played Spirit Island itself a couple times, so we haven't done a review on it yet. But this came up on the random, and it seems like it's kind of a good idea to start by reviewing what they consider the introductory version, so that way we have something good to compare the real version to.
And these spirits can actually be incorporated into the other games, so you can use them along with it if you're done with this game.
Yeah, so that's one thing. These spirits are on thin card stock. They're not terrible, but if you're familiar with the regular Spirit Island, they're thicker cardboard pieces, and they've released these as the thicker cardboard. I think I found them on Game Nerds, not a sponsor, but they had them there for under $7 to get the thicker cardboard, and I figured it'd be worth picking those up. So if
We got those.
So you can integrate them. We haven't gotten them yet because Game Nerds, not a sponsor, lets you do holds, so you can buy stuff as you find them on sale or whatever, ask them to hold it, and then when you get up to the free shipping threshold, release it for free shipping.
Well, Nerd Day's coming up.
And so yeah, that was my thought. I was like, we'll play with these thin ones for the review, and we're bound to hit the free shipping threshold, so I bought the thicker cardboard bits and said hold, and they've been holding them diligently for I don't know, a couple months. So
Really? So it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Interesting. So this is a 2 or 3 player game. So that's the max for this. So let's.
The box says 1 to 3.
Is there a solo mode?
But it doesn't have a solo board. So I didn't actually look to see solo player.
Do you just play as 2 spirits?
Okay, so you would block off one of the boards
On the 2 player side?
on the 2-player side. So yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's not the best way to do the solo, I would think. I would rather play solo with, if I was using this board, rather than, it says use fear tokens to mark those as being not used, but I would rather just play 2 spirits myself if I was doing solo, just for the simplicity of keeping the board the way it is. Horizons of Spirit Island is kind of a reverse colonization game. Instead of the games where you're building settlements and spreading out into wilderness, you're actually spirits of the wilderness repelling people who are trying to come in and build. And so you have Dahan, which are the huts, symbolized by the huts in this game. And those are like the natives that are living on the island that you can use to help you repel the invaders. The invaders start by exploring exploring, sending explorers in, and then as they explore, they'll start building towns and then start building cities. And if things get bad enough, they start adding what they call blight, which is kind of like pollution. And that hurts the land, and it also hurts the spirits that are also have presence in that land.
Yes. So you can lose your presence if blights move into a spot where you have your marker. If you run out of blights, you lose the game.
There's multiples of ways to lose the game. This is a cooperative game. Just like with most cooperative games, there are multiple ways to lose. If all the blight that is stored in this little blight pool gets put out onto the board, you lose. And it's 5 blight per player plus 1, so there's 11 blight here. If you ever go through the whole explore deck and they can't explore anymore, then you lose. Or if any spirit loses all of their presence on an island, you will also lose.
So there's a couple ways that you can win in this game. You have a terror deck, which we'll explain in a minute, but if you empty that out, then you'll win. Or there are 3 different levels of terror. So each terror card will tell you something that will happen in the game. And if you end up clearing everything you're supposed to in that phase, you would win. So for terror level 1, if you clear the board of all of the explorers, all of the towns, and all of the cities, you win.
That's really hard to do.
Yes, very hard to do. If you progress to level 2 terror, your level 2 terror, you have to clear the board of all towns and cities.
This replaces the current terror level. So then you can have explorers there, but you got to get rid of the towns and the cities.
And then your level 3 terror is just you have to have all cities off of the board. And if you do that, then you win. So if you haven't completed that by the end of, as you're going through the 3rd phase, if you empty out this deck completely, you win. Without any of those other triggers happening.
There are 9 fear cards. So there's 3 fear cards that you have to go through before you get to terror level 2, 3 to get to terror level 3, and then 3 more to the end of the game.
And how you trigger terror is that there are certain cards that you play that will have a terror symbol on it. And for 2 players, fears. For each, for a 2-player game, there's 8 fears. So you have your 8 fear tokens, and as
4 per player.
4 per player. And as you play cards that have the fear symbol on it, you move it out of the fear pool. And as soon as there are no fears left in the fear pool, you take that top terror card and you move it over into the earned fear cards here. And so
you won't deal with those until later.
So once all of the fear tokens have been moved out of the pool, you basically refresh it. They all come back into the pool, and then you start all over by playing cards to get fear out. And then if you do that again, you move the next fear card over. So you keep doing that as the game progresses. And at the end of each, I guess you would call phase, or each action round is over, you would then deal with the fear cards that have been moved over to that pile.
So at the beginning of the game, you're going to want to do setup. When you play the board, it's a 2-sided board. It's got the 2-player side that has 2 island sections, and the other side is a 3-player board with 3 sections. And what you'll do is there are symbols in each of these little land types that show you what it's initially populated with, whether it gets
the setup's really easy,
or blight or towns. And so you'll just put those down. You'll pick which spirit you want, and at the back of it, it'll say where it goes at setup, how many influence presence markers you'll put down. In my case, I've got 1 here to start. She has 2 here to start. And then the very first thing for setup is you'll do what they call an explorer. And you've got a deck of these explore cards which have a certain number of level 1s, 2s, and 3s stacked up from 3 to 1s at the top. And you'll flip over the top one, and it'll give you a land type that they're going to explore. And so what you'll do is you'll take
so that's water.
And any coastal areas or areas of that type that are adjacent to a town will get an explorer.
So in this instance, this water has a town in it, so it'll get an explorer. This water is right beside a water with a town, so it gets an explorer token. This water has a city in it, so that will get an explorer, and the water right beside it is adjacent to a city, so it's getting an explorer. So basically all the water's got an explorer on it.
So the explorers are coming in from the coastal areas or leaving existing towns and cities to
kind of
go
migrating
exploring.
out.
So thematically it makes sense. There are two edges here that have mountain range that are not considered coastal, even though they're next to the water, so you don't get people coming from all sides. It's just this coastal area, that coastal area. And then you'll move the card from the top of the Explore deck and move it over to the next section, which is the Build section. So that is set up. So you'll have your presence on the board, you'll have the Dahans, the cities, the towns on the board, and then depending on what this is, you'll have explorers out on the board. Every turn follows the same pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first part is the spirit phase. And with the spirit phase, every spirit has a section at the top that says growth, and it's divided into 3. I don't know if other spirits might have more than 3, but
all the ones we've played have only had 3.
Have 3, and they'll give you an option of what you can do. Reclaim cards, gain new power cards, gain energy, place presence out on the board. And so you're going to pick one of those actions to do for your growth. I'll hold this out. And you're going to have, it's kind of hard to see here, but you're going to have tokens covering the dots that you can see on this one. So that's your presence. So whenever you would take presence, you need to add presence to the board, you would pick one of the leftmost presences. Presence-I.
I've never heard it said that way.
And take it and place it wherever it says. Either add a presence where you already have presence, or within 1 away or 2 away, depending on what it says.
Yeah, depending on your growth. And each spirit has different growth options. They're all kind of similar, so you have the option, like Norm said, to gain power cards, which is building on your existing deck. To add, every one of them will have, all the growths will allow you to add presence, but you can get energy, get cards, reclaim cards that you've used, but all of them involve some type of placing your presence, and it'll tell you how or how far you can place them.
So as an example, the third one here for my spirit, called Devouring Teeth Lurk Underfoot.
It's a family name.
I can add a presence up to 2 away from where I already have a presence. So I could jump all the way over to Lisa's side of the island and put a presence in there if I wanted to.
He could even put a presence where he is already.
I could put it where I am already.
And if you have 2 presents in the same spot, they stack, and that becomes a holy place for you.
It's called a sacred site.
A sacred site, and that allows a little bit of additional benefit there.
So if I chose the up to 2 away, I would also gain 3 energy, and so that's your currency. So I'd just put this over here.
Yeah, and you need energy to play cards.
After you pick your growth and do everything on there, then you would gain energy. Looking at your board at the top, it has numbers across the top there, and you would gain that much energy. In my case, my first spot is uncovered, I get 2.
Well, now you placed your presence. I'm going to place my presence.
So that would give me 5 energy.
Just so we can be even here. So in my instance, I can either reclaim cards and add a presence in an existing spot that I already have it. And my spirit is Fathomless Mud of the Swamp. And so I can also place a presence 1 away from where I have presence on the board, and I get to do that twice in a growth. So I can take 2 and put them both in the same spot and have another sacred place. Or my last option for growth is to gain a power card to add a presence up to 2 away from where I am, and get 2 additional energies. So if I can choose which one of those 3 I want to do, in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and place 2 presents. And I'm actually going to take it from both stacks. So the top stack, again, is my energy stack. The bottom one is just the number of cards I can play. So I have to do it within 1 of existing presents. I'm going to keep them both together, and I'm just going to put them here in this water beside me.
And so then she would gain her energy,
which is just 1.
which is 1.
So I now have just 1 energy to work with this round.
Where I have 5. So then you're going to choose and play your cards, and every spirit has 4 cards that are unique to them that you start with in your hand. You can play as many cards as shown in your cards plays area. So if you look, there's 1 and then 2, and then it gives you a symbol that we'll talk about later. But then if you uncover that one, you can play 3. You can go all the way up to playing 4. But you're limited not just by the energy that you have to pay for those cards, but you're also limited by how many cards you can actually play out. So even though I have 5 energy, I can't play out these 3 cards that cost 5. I can only play 2. And so what you'll do is you will pick the cards that you want to play. In this case, I've picked 2 cards that will cost 3. They have their cost up in the top corner. So I put them out, spend my 3 energy immediately, and those are my cards. Every spirit plays differently, and on the back they also have a nice little summary that shows what your strengths are, whether you're good at offense, control, fear, defense, or utility. And so depending on how you like to play, you might be able to pick like this guy, the eyes watch from the trees is very good at defense. So if you like playing a more defensive game, then you would probably pick these guys, where I think my devouring teeth is more offense. Every spirit has their starting deck of 4 cards. They also have a special rule just for them. In my case, my damage dealing powers do +1 damage, so I'm definitely offense. And then you'll also have an innate power which triggers off of what symbols you play on your cards. So when you're picking cards, one of the things you want to keep track of is what symbols they have along the side, because you might want to trigger your innate power.
My special ability is at your sacred spot, build actions only add an explorer instead of a town or city.
After we all pick our cards, then it's what they call the fast power phase. That's another thing that you have to think about when you're playing out your cards. You've got cards that have the bird symbol on it, which are fast, and you have your cards with the turtle symbol that are slow. And so the way that things will work is you're going to do your fast powers first, then the invaders are going to do their turn, and then your slow powers will kick in. You might have a slow power that you're like, okay, that would be awesome. That'll take care of this spot and we won't have to worry about that. But because it's a slow action, the invaders are going to do their thing and change the board state, and then your slow action might not be as good as you thought it was. And so you might have something that's like, great, I'm going to wipe them out of there so they can't ravage that area, but they get to ravage before your slow even happens.
There's also, Norm talked about your innate powers that trigger off of the symbols you have. Some of those innate powers are fast and some are slow. So all of mine are slow, all of his are slow, but there are other spirits that their innate powers are fast. So those are also things to look at and consider when you're looking at your cards to play out.
When you're playing your cards, you'll trigger your fast actions first, and you can do them in any order. It's not, I do mine first and then she does hers. She might have one that would be better to do before I do mine. I might have one that does a big attack in an area. She might have one that can move invaders into an area, and so it'd be better for her to move them in so I could do the big attack.
Yeah, you definitely want to communicate with your team to make sure you're utilizing your cards the best.
This fast action doesn't do anything on its own, except I can target another spirit and they do +3 damage with one of their damage dealing abilities that turn. If I don't let them know that I'm planning on playing this, they may not play an ability that does damage, and then this would be wasted.
And I may not have a fast action on my round that would benefit that in the fast action phase. So I will still get that ability. I may have a slow action that deals some damage, but I'm not going to be able to utilize that additional damage until the slow phase. So those are also things to keep in mind.
And so you're going to be doing different things with these fast actions. After you play those, then the invader phase will happen. And if you've generated any fear cards, you'll then draw the earned fear, and it has 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3, based on the current terror level of the game. So at the beginning of the game, you're in terror level 1, so you would read terror level 1, and this one says each player removes 1 explorer from an inland land. So it can't be a coastal land, but there are two lands inland here that actually have explorers, and so I would pick one and she would pick one. So the earning fear cards is a good thing. Not only does it get you through that deck to get to the easier win conditions, but hopefully they do something scary to the people who are trying to explore.
And your fear card gets played before the invader action, so that's also very helpful. Now, of course, in a real game, you're not going to have a fear card in the first round. You're just not going to have any cards that would generate that much fear. But just in our little scenario we got rid of some explorers.
So then what you're going to do is you're going to start at this end and work this way. There's the ravage section. So the first thing the explorers are going to do is ravage whichever terrain is in that spot. In the first turn of the game, there's nothing in the ravage spot. It's got to fill up. But let's say it was like this. They're going to ravage in the water areas. And so they are going to do damage to any Dahans that are there and damage the land itself. Each explorer does 1 damage, each town does 2 damage, and each city does 3 damage. Dahan can take 2 damage before they're destroyed. If they take 1, you'll flip them to the damage side, and then if they take another damage, they're destroyed. You can't space them out. So if you're in a spot with 2 Dahan and they do 2 damage, you can't damage each of them once so they can heal at the end of the turn. You have to deal it all to the 1, and so it's gone. And when it's gone unless you have a power that lets you add more Dahan. After that, if any Dahan survive, they can hit back for 2 damage. And so explorers, they only take 1 damage to destroy. Towns take 2. You'd flip them over to the damage side if you did 1. And the cities take 3. They have a damage side, but then you have to do 2 additional damage. So they say mark it with an energy token for the 2nd damage. And then when you deal the 3, it goes away. And if you're able to destroy a town, that generates a fear because you were able to destroy a town. If you destroy a city, that generates 2 fear. So after the invaders attack and the Dahan fight back, any other damage spills over to the land itself. And if the invaders ever do 2 damage to the land, it will get a blight token. So in this case, we have a city here and an explorer, no Dahans, no nothing. It dealt 3 damage.
Dealt 4 damage.
3 plus 1, it dealt 4 damage. It gets a blight, and it's taken from the blight pool. If you play a card that removes blight, it goes back to the blight pool.
So again, if you run out of blights in the blight pool, you've lost the game. So you want to be real careful. You don't want blights on the land.
You don't. And there is a kind of the pandemic style where if they blight this land again, it will get a second blight, but then you also have to choose a land that's touching it and give it a blight. And if that happened to give a second blight to that land, then you do it again. So
it will spread out.
You can get some cascading blight happening. And if you ever put blight into a land where spirits have presence, every spirit has to remove one of their presence from a spot that gets freshly blighted.
And that presence is removed from the game.
It gets set off to the side. It doesn't go back to your board.
Which is how you can lose also if one spirit has no presence left on the island. You've lost the game. So
then after they ravage, the next thing in line is building. And so in this case, it says that they're building in the jungle, and they don't have any presence in the jungle. So let's give them a little bit of presence in the jungle. This is. Can you pass me a city? This is a
wow.
This is a disaster.
This is a horrible
game. When they build, what you're going to do is you're going to look, and if they're building in the jungle. So if the jungle does not have any explorers there, they're not going to build anything. This jungle has one explorer, so then they're going to build a town in that spot. And then in this place, there's a town, so they're going to build a city. And then down here, there's a city and a town. Unless the towns outnumber the cities, it's going to build a town. So this is going to get another town. If it was a city and two towns, then it would get a second city. And so the building is putting more towns and cities on the map. And then the last thing you do is explore. You flip over the next face down card, and they're now going into the sandy areas.
And the same thing applies. If it's a coastal sand, then they're going to get an explorer. If it is adjacent to a town or a city, or even where there's an explorer, no, it's just town or city. If it's adjacent to a town or city, it will get an explorer. So this one will get an explorer, and that one.
Yeah, so in this case, it's all of them. And then you'll slide them down. The one that was ravaged goes to the discard. They're now going to ravage in the jungle next. And they explored in the sand, they're going to build their next turn.
So you know what they're going to do on the next round. So when you're picking your cards, you can now choose strategically the best cards to help defend the areas from getting ravaged, because you don't want blights, you don't want your Tahan destroyed. And you can also do some systematic planning to keep buildings from happening.
Right. So you can be like, okay, they're going to ravage in the jungle. Can I deal with that?
Or
no.
Can I defend
it? They're going to build in the sand. Can I deal with that? So then after all the invader phase, then you will do the slow. So the slow actions you can play to try to undo some of the mess that the invaders did on their turn. And then after we take all of our slow actions, the cards that you played go into your discard pile. And any Dahans or cities and towns that were damaged will then heal back up. The damage doesn't carry over. So I played 2 cards that turn. Now I've only got 2 cards left in my hand because we all started with 4. And that's where the gain power card ability can come in. You have a stack of minor powers and you have a stack of major powers. Major powers, they're a little bit more major than minors. But regardless of which one you pick, you're going to draw 4 off the top of the deck. And in the case of minor, you're just going to pick one. They're fast actions, they're slow actions. Some might be more defensive, some might be more offensive, some might be more control. But you get to pick whichever one you want, and it goes into your hand. So since I only had 2 cards, I might be like, okay, both of these actions are slow. Let me gain a power card and see if I can get a fast action to help. And it's like, okay, here's a fast action that generates 2 fear and helps defend mountains and jungles. Jungles are about to get ravaged. Okay, I'm going to take that card into my hand, and these other 3 get discarded. And so now when I get to pick cards, I get to pick 2 of the 3, including the one that I just picked up. And so that's how you can get more cards into your hand.
If you decide to go the major power route, it's the same. So when you get to gain a power card, you choose if you want the major or minors. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to draw 4 off the top. You're going to look at them and you're going to decide which one you want to keep. The major power cards cost a little bit more energy to play them because they are obviously more powerful. Whichever card you decide to take, you have to forget another power. So you have to go through your deck and you have to find a card to get rid of. It could be one of your minor power cards or it could be one of your starting cards, but you have to forget one so it's removed from the game.
It could even be a major power that you picked previously that you're like, okay, no, this is no good to me right now and these other cards are, so I'm going to forget a major to take a major. That's rare, but the rules say you can do it.
And these again are slow and fast, but they are a bit more powerful. And usually they have 2 sections. One being, so for instance, this one is 2 damage per Tahan. So I could play this card within a range of 2 of where I have presence, and if there are Tahan there, it's going to do 2 damage per Tahan. So for this one over here, there's 2 Tahan in this jungle. There's a city and then there's a town. So that's 5 damage right there that those 2 items, that those 2 invaders are going to do. Since this can do 2 damage per Tahan and it's a fast action, that means they're going to deal 4 damage.
You can wipe out this city and damage that town once.
Or you can wipe out that town, but that city would not be destroyed. So the best action would be to destroy that city. It triggers 2 fear for you, and then it's out of the game, and it's not going to go through the ravage phase.
And with that damaged town, if somebody else can do 1 damage to it, then it's gone as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's how the major and the bottom section to that, what I was saying is, if you have those certain symbols, like Norman showed earlier, it allows you to do more things. So you can either deal 2 damage per Tahan, and if you have, the 3 sun and the 2 fire, you may push up to 2 Tahan. In lands you've pushed Tahan, 2 damage per Tahan presence. So this is in addition to. So some are you choose either or, but this one happens to be in addition to.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a powerful card.
So generally, early in the game, you're just going to keep getting some minor powers until you get a handful, and then you're like, okay, it's getting to the point where let's try a major. Along with the speed of the card, there's also a range of the card and the target land of the card. So this one is within range 1 of where I have presence. This one's within range 0, so I can't do this if I don't have presence in the spot. Some of them may require you to have a sacred site to work from. And some, like the one where I can target a spirit, it'll say the target is another player, meaning I can't target myself with this action. And so that's something you have to keep in mind as well. There were so many times playing where it's like, okay, this would be awesome. Oh wait, I don't have presence in that spot. So I need to take a growth that adds a presence in order to be able to play this card where I want.
So once you've completed your slow actions and you've refreshed all of the damage that's been done, you're starting a new round. So you're going to start back up at the growth phase. You're going to pick which growth option you want for yourself, put some presence out on the board, and then get your power, get your energy.
Rinse and repeat.
And you're just going to do that again. And it's going to follow that same cycle.
So sooner or later, you're going to have a bunch of cards played out into your discard, and you may not like what you have in your hand, and you're going to have to pick the reclaim cards. Growth. My reclaim cards, all I do is I reclaim my cards from my played pile, and I add a presence where I am already. So I would add another one right there. But now I have all my cards, the ones I just played, including the ones that I gained, and I can start fresh and start playing these out until I've played out so many that I need to reclaim them again later.
And as you're putting out presence on the board, you can end up playing up to 4 cards at one time. And of course, that's going to require quite a bit of energy. So you're going to need to make sure you're balancing that of removing your energy presence as well.
And some spots have those symbols that are required to trigger your innate power and some of those special abilities that do something bonus if you have those symbols. So by uncovering more of these, you get some of those symbols passively every turn without having to play cards with that symbol.
You're going to lose some Tahan along the way. You're going to potentially lose some of your presence, but hopefully you're destroying a lot of the invaders and clearing the land of their presence. There you go.
That's the game. So, what do you think of Horizons Spirit Island?
The first time we ever played Spirit Island, not Horizons, but Spirit Island, and I don't want to give too much away because I'm sure we'll end up playing Spirit Island again. I didn't like it, but I also didn't necessarily, I didn't put my effort into the game. So he introduced it to me and I played it. It just didn't catch my interest. This one caught my interest a bit more. I think this would have been the better game to start with me on, just to introduce me to it, because I think I wasn't tracking with the symbols to use and the right cards to play. It could be that I've had just more gaming experience since then and I feel more confident in that, but I didn't enjoy playing Spirit Island. I would have been fine never playing it again. And so we had to play this one for the random review, but I enjoyed this one more. The cards, I have to play the other one soon to do a fair comparison. But the cards were easier to understand. It just clicked this time for me. I was able to just keep going, and playing the cards made sense. So
yeah, these spirits, I don't know if they are actually easier, but they do seem a little bit easier to understand and how to play them. I do know I recognized some cards from the base game in this deck. So there is overlap.
I do really like their names, their use of the words and the names of the creature. So Fathomless Mud of the Swamp is the spirit. His is Devouring Teeth Lurk Underneath. And then the
Eyes Watch from the Trees.
That's
is
just
one.
They're so clever. And each card, whether it be your starting card or the power cards, they all have names. So Open Shifting Waterways, Exaltation of Tangled Growth, Intractable Thickets and Thorns. And I mean, they're clever, and they basically explain what that card does.
They're very thematic. I get in the habit of not paying attention to the titles of the cards, but when you do, they're very thematic.
Yeah, it makes it a bit more enjoyable.
Like this card here is called Herd Towards the Lurking Maw, and it's the picture are these tentacles that are pushing these invaders back to the Sarlacc pit. And so it generates a fear, and you target a spot that you have presence, so you're the Sarlacc pit, and you're gathering up to one explorer or town. And so you're actually herding people towards yourself, so then maybe you can do damage to them later. There's things in here, a call to isolation, where you're pushing explorers away. I think I remember seeing one where you're doing, it's talked about something being like enticing, and it allows you to bring invaders in, and so it's like you're almost like toying with them, being like, hey, look, here's something shiny, and bringing them in, so then you can do stuff to them. And so the cards are very cool.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they're named, the way that it interacts with their actions.
And the spirit cards, there's some flavor text on there as well on the back of it that just kind of give you a little bit of understanding of that particular spirit. So how thematic this game is such a perfect addition. So you've got some games you play that the theme just doesn't make sense of the game. This one is very fitting. So they put a lot of thought and effort into the game, putting it together, how it works, the naming of everything. So kudos to them for the design of it. I like how the fear works. I like how cards can generate some fear, and the fear triggers cards that will then help you at the end of the phases. How they explore, how they spread. I mean, that can be very intimidating, but it's very satisfying to remove it as you see the board just get overpopulated with these invaders, and your cards are able to clear out some of that. That's very satisfying to me. So you're seeing the rewards of your effort.
One thing that is both a good point and a bad point for this game, I think, in my opinion, is it has this quick start guide, which walks you through setting up a 3-player game and playing through the first round of a 3-player game, telling you where to put your presence, where to select it, what cards to pick, and it also shows you very much how the spirits can interact with each other. It's really good at just walking you through, and then at the end of the first round, it's like, okay, now finish it. And it does a really good job of teaching the game. My problem with this is they don't have a quick start guide for 2 players. When we sat down, I was starting to go through the quick start guide myself. I like to play a game through solo to get the rules down. I wanted to refresh myself because it had been a while since we played Spirit Island, but I didn't get around to it. So then when I was going to play with Lisa, I was like, okay, we'll just flip it to the 2 side, set it up, and start playing. And I set aside the quick start guide and tried to use the rule book, and the rule book is not as user-friendly. There are places that you can find the information, but it's not super fast to find the information that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so there'd be times where it's like, okay, I need a refresher. How does this work? And I'd be looking through the rule book under that section, let's say it was talking about presence, and so you read about presence and sacred sites, and it's like, okay, that doesn't cover what I'm looking for, so where else is it? Mm-hmm. And so I would look in the quick start guide and be like, okay, where does it talk about somebody putting up presence or whatever, and be like, oh, okay, after reading the example, I understand.
Yeah, so that first game we played took quite a while. One, to refresh ourselves with the game itself, but finding the clarifications we needed. It was quite frustrating.
Yeah, there were points. Yeah, I was getting frustrated because it's like, I'm pretty sure I know what the rule is, but it was getting to the point where it's like, I want to find it in this rule book, and not in the quick start guide. It's like, okay, I found it in the quick start guide. Where is it in the rule book? And it was frustrating.
And I'll be honest, I'm very spoiled when it comes to new games because, again, Norm's already set it up. He's already played through a few rounds himself to really get an understanding. He's already read the rule book. And going into this, I mean, we had already played before, so we already had familiarity with it. But, he didn't get a chance to go through it on his own. So sitting there, I'm spoiled. He's spoiled me in this. So I'm used to getting in, him explaining, and us going. But it took forever to get started. It was
not a smooth.
No, not at all.
But we after that game, the next day, it was like, you know what? Let's play a 3-player game with this. I took two of the spirits. She took one, and just walked it through the first turn. And once you go through the quick start guide, you've pretty much got it.
Yeah, super easy at that point.
But it was just frustrating that it was like, okay, we're not playing 3 players, we're playing 2 players, so let's just set aside the quick start guide. And I think that's a mistake, especially if you're a new player. Like I was using it just as a refresher of the rules, and it was frustrating to me trying to find, okay, where in the rule book does it say that, because I know that's one of the rules. So that's that's both a good and a bad thing. If you get this, even if you're playing it for 2 players, maybe at least one of you go through the quick start guide just to get the flow of the game down, so then you can read the rule book and then teach it.
Again, this game has, it's just basically the introduction to it. It was a Target exclusive, I think. The components, just a cardboard, where the Spirit Island game itself had the plastic pieces, so it's a little bit, so it's a little bit upgraded in that. For this game, these components are just fine.
I understand they wanted to keep the price down. The rule book is this glossy paper that doesn't
blinds
feel good,
you when the light hits.
It's hard to flip through. It's got the thin cardboard for the spirits and cardboard for the others. I will say that these cardboard bits are huge.
Yeah.
And so
and the board's not. So
each little tiny section, once you start piling stuff on, it's a big pain.
Yeah.
In the game, the bits are smaller, and so it's easier to just pack a bunch of invaders into a spot. They have tokens for 3 times explorers, but I don't like using those, because then you put that in a spot and it's like, okay, well, I've killed 1, so now I got to throw that in and get 2. It's easier just to stack 3 on top of each other.
And I don't know if we ever had an instance where there were 3 explorers in one spot.
So it's just when you start getting all the Dahans and the cities, and you're trying to present it in a way that you can see what's happening, and they start pushing into the other areas. It would have been nicer if they were smaller. I like having the double-sided board for 2 and 3 players with the total number of blight and fear, instead of having to remember, okay, it's 4 fear per player. It's just printed on the board. You put 8 fear here, you put 11 blight here. The other game, each island is made up of individual pieces that you stick together, and then you just have a spot, a board for the fear and all of that, and then you need to determine how much to put in. And so if you haven't played in a while, you might be looking in the rule book to be like, okay, how much fear do we start with? How much blight?
Yeah, for this particular game, the components being a little bit big as far as the city and the invaders, it works fine. I mean, we got a little bit spoiled playing Spirit Island first and seeing the differences there. But if you start with Horizons of Spirit Island, first of all, it's a great introduction to the game. But like Norm said, follow the quick start for a 3-player, and that's going to get you through even if you're playing 2-player. So it's a great introduction to the game, and then, progress to Spirit Island.
All right, you want to give it some ratings?
Let's give it some ratings.
All right, who's going first?
You go first on this one.
All right, our first bit is going from 0 to 7 based on the gameplay and the production of the game. Just basically, how good of a game is it? Are there parts that are broken? Are there parts that don't work? Are there parts that just detract from the game itself? And while I'm tempted to give it the 7 out of 7 there, I might give it the 6 out of 7, just for the clunkiness of the quick start guide and these extra large pieces that just, I think, unnecessarily make it a little bit more difficult to play.
It's just a little clunky. And I get it. I mean, if you make these too small, they're going to be hard to really handle.
You're like, okay, what's a city and what's a town?
So I mean, I get it, but like Norm said, maybe make them a little bit smaller or easier to manage, because the map is not big. The sections of the terrain are not very spacious, so you've got to be clever in how you're arranging everything.
So it's a high 6 bordering on 7. I mean, probably the only reason it doesn't get a 7 is that I'm familiar with Spirit Island itself, and the plastic and wooden bits that are smaller and are easily distinguishable while being smaller. And so I think Horizons of Spirit Island probably drops to a 6, just based on the fact that Spirit Island exists.
And I'm agreeing with you on that, but I'm gonna rate this based on not knowing Spirit Island because I don't think it's fair. If I had just played this game, I would give it a 7. The components are a little bit big, but you can stack them. I mean, you can get creative in how you put them together. The fact that I know Spirit Island, I don't want that to take away from this. So I would give this a 7.
I agree that the rules and the gameplay, it's a 7 out of 7. It plays smoothly. It makes sense. So yeah, I get that.
And the theme of it is amazing. I am all for, the natives keeping their land and keeping out the invaders and the pollution. More power to them.
We've got enough games where we're on the invader side and just exploiting the land for wealth.
Yeah.
So this is a nice little.
It's a nice change up.
Break from that.
Yeah.
So the wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
There's 0 to 3 based on our personal likes and dislikes.
And I hate that I'm gonna give it a 1, but I'm gonna go with a 1 just because there's other games that I would rather play. It's not knocking this game at all. It is a good game. If someone suggests it, sure, I'll play it. But there's other games I would rather play instead of this.
Wow. I think I'm giving it the 3.
You're giving this a 10?
So no, it's being 9. Because of the...
Oh, you gave it a 6. You gave it a 6. Right.
But I really enjoy the puzzle. Like we've played other cooperative games. This one feels like a cooperative game where you actually have to work with the other person.
Yeah.
And you get to do like really awesome stuff. And some of that awesome stuff is setting up your partner to make a big play, to be like, oh, you can do a ton of damage, all right, let me move all those people in there. Moving all those people in there doesn't seem like that great of a power, but you just shoved them into somebody throwing a lightning bolt,
right? And
I really enjoy that.
Yeah, you're right. This might be one of the most cooperative games of co-op games we've played. So where they really just enhances each other. We did not play well the first game. And by we, I mean him. So it just, the first game did not go well.
In my defense, I was wrestling with a rule book the whole time.
It did not play well that first game. And so
my side of the island was just getting swamped.
We won. But no thanks to him. It just did not, it was not a smooth game at all. And so we went to bed. Next day we decided to try it again. We decided to do the same spirits so we could just get an understanding of the game. And we did so much better. He was able to play his cards better. We were able to play off each other better. So the second time was a much more enjoyable game.
I think also you need to limit your communication maybe a little bit. You could be like, okay, I've got this place covered, so I need your help here. Are you able to help here, and things like that? Or I can increase your damage. Do you have a good damage ability that you can do? And she might be like, yeah, I could do a bunch of damage here, but I do more damage than there are things. Could you get more people in there, or something like that? I think that with any cooperative game, there's the problem of having a quarterback, where one person is basically like, all right, show me what cards you got, show me what cards you got, show me what cards you got, and I'll tell you how to play. And
that doesn't go well with us.
I think if you can limit the discussion, there'll be times where she'll be like, okay, I got a card that can move somebody. I'm going to move this guy into here. And it might be like, well, but if you move him in here, I got a card that'll do that. Rather than just planning out the perfect turn between everybody, being like, okay, everyone show your cards and let's pick the best. you pick what you think would be best while discussing what you might be able to do and what you might not be able to do and what other people could take up the slack for.
I mean, you've got to go in prepared to work as a team to clear the island. If you're going in just with that quarterback mentality, you're not gonna win. The invaders are gonna take over.
You might as well play a solo game.
Yeah.
If you're gonna want to play everyone's hand, just be like, you know what? I'm gonna play a solo game and I'm taking all these spirits. I'm playing them all, and then try your best. That's one thing this game scales really well for the number of players, because you just add a board for each player. You got the 2 board for 2 players. You flip it over. It's 3 island sections for 3 players. And if you're playing 1 player, you just turn off one side. And so it's real easy to scale it for players.
And it's so interactive. So everybody's playing at the same time. So you're not sitting there waiting for the other players to go and then you get bored or you sit around getting distracted. The game doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it takes a bit of time because you're going through each round. You're having to play through the fear deck, so it's a little bit of time. It's not unreasonable. It's not too much. I think it's perfect in that time balance.
Yeah, so it's a 9 creeping to 10 for me.
It's an 8 for me. So is it staying in the collection?
I don't know. Is it?
For now.
Yeah, this is definitely one that I would play again. And when you play Spirit Island, I think that this is one where I might take bits of this and throw it into that one. Like I said, I'm getting the thicker Spirit boards, so that's an easy inclusion into the original Spirit Island. I could see keeping this board as well, just so when you're playing with 2 players or 3 players, be like, okay, we'll just play with we'll play with this setup instead of the 2 things. I think G and H, these 2, or is it F and G? I don't know. There's a section of board here. There's 2 boards that are not reprinted in Spirit Island that people have asked, hey, can you print just those 2 boards as separate sections so we can put that in Spirit Island so we can construct, because if every board has a different layout of what terrain there is and what starts there. But at the moment, this board is the only way to play with those 2 island boards, and it makes it real easy setup. Be like, play 2 player, put this out.
And I would say this would be the better game to introduce people to for Spirit Island. I think this is the way to go.
I think I would use the wooden and plastic pieces.
Yeah. Components different, but
I think from what I read, the cards in here, some of these are changed, worded in a way that is a little bit easier to understand. I think as they came out with expansions, they found a way to streamline the way things were put, and so I'd probably look through the Spirit Island deck and replace them with these cards if the card backs match well. And
so I'm eager to play Spirit Island again now that I feel better playing it. I have a better understanding after doing this. I want to give that one another chance.
Yeah, because that's just adding more spirits. More fear cards, things like that.
Gameplay's the exact same.
So it's just more variability.
Okay, so it's staying in our collection for now. We'll get Spirit Island back on the table and give that another go, and then do a review on that one and comparison, and so that's it for this one. But now we've got to pick our next random.
Let's see what we get as a random for our next random.
I don't know how we're gonna get the game.
All right, you want to hit
Am I hitting the button again?
Hit the button. It's the blue one there.
Stop looking. No cheating. Barron Park.
Barron Park. That's right here.
Well, that's simple. All right,
got it right side up.
we have played this one before, so we'll just do a bit of refresher on it, and then we'll be able to hopefully turn a review over pretty quick on that.
Awesome.
It's all right.
So keep an eye out for that.
So Horizons of Spirit Island staying,
I'm going to leave it out there rather than put it on the shelf because we're going to tackle
Yep.
that.
and then we'll be hitting up Barron Park. So stick with us, like us if you like what we're doing. Give us thumbs up if you don't like what we're doing. Give us a thumbs down. Give us some feedback. What could we do to make it better? But we appreciate you following along.
Ba-la-la-la.
We appreciate that too. So thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.